Another way that alpha mutations might be causing you to change even in the midst of combat is that every time you're going to be rolling a 1, you're actually going to alpha flux, and that's going to cause you to discard whatever card you have, whether you've spent that power or not. You might lose laser vision in your eyes and get new giant feet, or you might lose the giant feet and get laser vision in your eyes. Completely random.
All right, let me go back here first. Yep.
So my question is, given sort of the more random nature, like how do you, from a sort of story perspective, like how do you work, like, okay, Gamma World's, you know, been harsh to someone, they die, they're bringing in a new character, like, what are the sort of story hooks in Gamma World? That's the only thing I'm not,
Sure.
how do you work that in?
So somebody gets killed, they get gacked by a killer robot, and 15 minutes later, a brand new hero arrives around the corner and says, hey, you know, you look trustworthy. Would you care to go on an adventure with us? Yes. That's pretty much about as much guidance as we give you. Sorry. It's don't hang up too much on the question of exactly where did this helpful fellow come from. Yeah. Yes. A cockroach Yeti turns a corner and has a fusion rifle and says, I want to help you. Okay, you're on the team.
But, you know, building story elements, I mean, we definitely, you know, wrote the rules with a lighthearted touch, but you can, you know, take it a little bit more seriously. And, in fact, Rich and I were talking when we originally played Gamma World. We actually were some of the people that took it very seriously back in the day, and we really enjoyed our Gamma World. So you'll also find the ability to, you know, you'll have your laughs, but you can also, you know, write an interesting story and tell a good story. The adventure in the first box set, for instance, begins with these strange, every day, this kind of dilapidated robot shows up at the edge of this village and just starts shooting law rockets at it, right? And it's like, what the hell is this robot coming from? Why does one show up each day and start shooting law rockets at the walls? So that's like the beginning of the adventure, and you kind of have to track that down to discover what ancient with a capital A facility has suddenly started up again of its own accord and begun churning out these robots.
One of the things I did in my game to sort of create a common story thread to explain why all these random mutants were showing up and joining the party is to create basically a randomized table of backgrounds that all sort of had a unified element. I kind of took a common trope from disaster movies that the various people were trying to seek this refuge for whatever reason. And the refuge was called Google's Hope. They were trying to get there because it was the one remaining refuge of the ancients, and so some people are getting there maybe to try to destroy it. Some people might be trying to get there to get the ancient technology. And Bruce, what was your character trying to go there for?
My character had seen some movies that had to do with the director. He did Roland Emmerich. That's right. He saw Independence Day, and he was a little concerned about extraterrestrial influences in Gamma Terra, so he was kind of on the lookout for that. That was kind of his main dig, is to make sure none of the other player characters were extraterrestrials and kill them if they were.
Sorry. I was just going to say, do I press a button or do I just... Okay, I was just going to say another thing you can do with the game that I was running at my place is, you know, you want to blow up the world, why not blow up your neighborhood? So that's what I did, and just set my game right in the ruins of my street, and with some of the local landmarks transformed into hangouts for porkers and whatever, and that's an easy way to get going, and you can just, suddenly your people are thrown together into a survivor camp, and you've already got the terrain. It's kind of fun to just knock a few letters out of a sign or whatever and transform the name of something. So that's what I was doing.
Jennifer brings up an excellent point about using things that are familiar to you. This is one thing that I find frequently happening in almost every one of my Gamma World games is I'm taking elements of the real world and sort of twisting them a little bit. For instance, they started in the city of Denver near the Color Radio Mountains. So I was using like Google Maps to kind of find locations that I thought were sounded interesting, but that I could add a slight twist to. And I was just really using normal maps. I used a lot of I got like AAA road maps, and I'd put those out, and I'd cross out sections and kind of show them where they were going. But of course, the mutants have no idea what the golden arches of McDonald's mean. So they think it's like if a temple to pies, which have remained preserved over the last 100 years somehow. So it's really fun taking elements of the real world and finding just slight tweaks you can do to make them a little humorous.
All right. How about straight back there? Oh, I was actually talking to the guy in front of you, but that's all right. I'll take them both.
For the alpha and omega decks, the player's ability to customize those, there's some limitations on the number of same cards they could put in. My players would put in 40 fusion rifles all day.
Absolutely. I think that we wind up with a 3 per.
I don't actually know what the rule is, but there's
Yeah.
some sort of limitation.
Yeah. So just 2? Yeah.
It might be 2.
Yeah, we agree. We did have a discussion about whether or not we wanted people to have reasons to show up to games with 7 fusion rifles in their hand. But I think we decided to go with some deck building rules that you can't have more than 2 of the exact same card. Oh, yeah. Bruce mentions here the concept of salvage for technology, and that is, if you find a really good piece of weaponry or a good piece of power armor, in general, the Omega Tech is pretty transitory. It's got power for a few shots. You don't know. Essentially, you're making a saving throw after almost every time you use it. And if you pass the saving throw, hey, it's still working. And if you fail, no, that was it. That was its last shot. Then it falls apart, or the power is gone, or whatever. However, you have a certain number of salvage slots, which is your way of saying, yeah, that's fine. I emptied out the black ray pistol, but the flechette gun, I know how to keep that working. I've sighted it. I can manage to somehow or another with baling wire and duct tape or elbow grease or just pure luck, whatever it is. I can keep that flechette rifle, running, because I'm going to go ahead and devote one of my salvage slots to it. And as you go up in level, the number of salvage slots you have increases. Now, when you salvage the flechette gun, it doesn't work quite as well. It's not at the same level of functionality as when you have it, on the temporary basis. But it's still a lot better than almost anything else you can carry. So your salvage slots is kind of a fun little mini management game you can play as you go up in levels to sort of not have your character image change absolutely every time you happen to find something new. You can still say, I'm happy with this power armor. I get to wear it around for a while. Yeah, it's not as good as when it let me fly and shoot rockets, but it's still pretty good. I know you've been waiting for a chance, so let's go ahead and get back to you here.
I was just curious. You said it was transparent with what position D&D, and then you said the leveling system only goes to 10. So
Yes.
is it a 5th level Gamma World character, a 5th level D&D character, or is it
Yeah.
5th level D&D Gamma World character if you put them like a 12th level?
So the question is, are the levels really equivalent between D&D and Gamma World if Gamma World only goes 1 to 10? Short answer is, in terms of like hit points you gain per level, in terms of how your attack bonuses progress, you're pretty close to being about where that D&D character is, with the exception that Gamma World characters do dish out a lot more damage, mostly because we're looking to try and have the fights be dangerous and fast.
They also take a lot more damage.
Yeah, yes, they do. So what it really means is the real reason we wanted to make it transparent is because we wanted to open up the entire monster manual and every monster manual available in 4th edition to you as a resource for the GM. Because we found in our experience at Gamma World back in the day that you could kind of go through those Gamma World monsters in a real hurry and not have anything new to show the players. And like 40% of them were fish. What was up with that? But, right? So we wanted to give the GM a chance to say, go raid your monster manuals and pick out good critters, critters you like to use. And you want to use something like a Mind Flayer and say, Mind Flayers look pretty alien and spooky, and I like them on my Gamma World. You can just do that.
I've actually used a lot of monsters from the Monster Manual in my Gamma World games, although now Bruce is looking at me suspiciously, wondering what those monsters were. Warforged, for instance, are something I've used in Gamma World to kind of as additional robots that I could throw in. And I haven't had any problem with running basically a group of third-level Warforged monsters against a group of third-level Gamma World creatures. So to me, that really indicates that you can interchange them without much of a problem.
Just because I'm so fond of those frickin' laser sharks. That was the first thing I thought of. Yes, it's a fish. Sorry, Rich, but I said I've always wanted to put lasers on my sharks, and now I can, and it's super easy. I just took a shark out of the monster manual, said it could fly. Put a ranged attack on it. Bam, there we go. So it's very, very easy.
All right, let's go ahead and go all the way back there because I cut you off before. So. No, that's fair. Right. Sure. So the question is, why did we decide to really play up the humor aspects rather than kind of play it straight? A shorter answer is our boss made us do it. Right. Yeah. Like I said, he called Bruce and I into a meeting and said, "Hey, we're going to do Gamma World. I actually want to, really try to, play around with doing a game that's got a pretty strong humor element just in the way we present it and the way we approach it." And he remembered Gamma World. That's the way he played it, back in the day. Bruce and I looked at each other. We tried to explain, but when I was like 14, man, I took that dead serious, right? Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. The other thing is, man, we do what, 30 books a year, 40 books a year that are written pretty darn serious, right? D&D, we play it straight up. And D&D is pretty ridiculous too when you think about some of the things that can happen, right? But we play that one pretty close to the chest. We're going to be the straight man and not try to crack the jokes for you, with D&D. And Gamma World, it's really a matter of exploring, a little bit different presentation, a little bit different mood, and this is a world that really kind of lends itself to that kind of fun,
So yeah, it's true. We were given the marching orders to say, well, you need to give it more of a lighthearted spin, and we're like, all right, we're up to that challenge. That doesn't mean that when we wrote the rules, we wrote the scenarios, that we weren't just as serious as we always are when we write rules and write scenarios and write interesting ways to make up characters. We realized what it finally allowed us to do is to comment upon some of the ridiculous aspects that might be there, right? It's like, and because it's a real world situation, so you might have ancestors of real world people actually in this situation, it kind of makes it more realistic that someone would say, wow, look at that big brain in a jar, and just, be able to comment upon it and not automatically, assume a big brain in a jar is a god from another dimension. You might crack a joke about it in the real world. And ultimately, Gamma World is the real world if this weird thing had happened to it. So it kind of actually follows the course.